Hello, folks. Welcome to our Dinar Perspectives Roundtable call for 22 February 2018. I would like to thank Kaleigh. Skeeter is with us tonight. Hello, Skeeter. And Bobby joining me tonight. I'd like to thank you guys for being here, and I appreciate you. Okay, let's see. I want to thank the great teamwork of our members that our members show on a daily basis in the group. So I'm just taking a minute to tell y'all guys I appreciate you, appreciate what you do. We've got a better than average bunch, I think. A lot of really well versed people. We got some smart folks.
Yeah, we do.
And we here at Dinar Perspectives also take great pains to bring you the most trustworthy news that can be found with our combined efforts. Now, bearing in mind that we've through the several years we've all collectively been doing this, we've learned to weed out certain things too, which is maybe a little ahead of myself in my monologue here, but I'll get to that in a second. Okay, they have stuff even like the National Enquirer, and I apologize for using that, but they have the two-headed baby rags over there too. So what we have to do is make sure that we're getting verification. Once upon a time, some of these sources, these news sources, I'll get it out. News sources in Iraq were owned by political parties or entities bound to political parties. So you have to ask yourself, how unbiased do you figure that news is? And that's why even being a researcher is not for the faint of heart. You can't just take something because it's in Arabic and go, well, it's got to be the gospel because it's in Arabic. No, sir. They have buggy stuff too. They have left field rags and things that are, associated with political parties. So, they're not going to give a bad impression of themselves, and they're going to give a worse than average impression of the opponents. So, remember some of that when we're looking. That's just for some of y'all researcher people out there who I have watched hone your skills, and that's why I can't say enough about how great this group is. We've got a really great bunch of researchers here. And anybody listening to this call who would like to find that out can come join us at Dinar Perspectives on Facebook. I would like to also, before I forget it, give a shout-out to Dinar Recaps for having hosted a couple of our calls already. That appears it might be a trend, so I'd like to at least tell them thank you for that. Okay, let's see. Moving on. Bear with me here. Has Bobby made it with us?
I'm back.
Okay. I'm into the teamwork. We've got a great team here. Okay, I've talked about the two-headed baby rags. Okay, many back in the day. Yeah, they So my point is, you just can't believe any old thing. We want to try to verify things. And so these onesies that come blowing in, that stir everybody up, remember, if it can't be verified, it goes into the speculation category. That's how we do it here. It doesn't matter what somebody says. If they cannot prove it or verify it somehow, then it's just what somebody said. And who knows what they've been drinking that day. So, okay, so let me move on here. Asking questions at other researchers, and some people would use the word guru. I think it's an overused word, but that other researchers would say, and you want to come into the group and ask a question based on Mr. X having said Y. That's fine. That's great. The interaction, as long as we stick to the point, because we can get into some muddy territory when we start trying to weigh the merits of the mouth that said it. To me, sufficient enough does this mouth have verification? Can I go look at it? Okay? If that question is answered in the negative, I got nothing else to say to it. So all I can do is tell you the yes or no based on my opinion of what was said. But anyway, that's just me, and I know everybody has their own approach to things, so I won't beat that to death. But except to say, and then we're going to move on to news. Y'all folks join this group, or at least those who have joined it and have expressed the reasons for joining it. You joined it to get away from the bull. You're not going to get that here. We only ask that we treat each other with a modicum of graciousness and a little bit of decorum in the room, because we don't want to descend into what I have myself, and no group specifically is mentioned here, but I have seen in other groups before, groups multiple. And I personally won't be a part of that sort of situation. So if y'all see me leave, you know it got muddy in here. Okay, let's see. Asking request. Yeah. Do what? Do this? Okay. I'm looking through notes, so y'all bear with me. When I jump off notes, you can tell because I have to get back on them. Okay. Without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move on to news. We like to pride ourselves for thinking we get to the point quickly, and with the exception of this call, we're going to keep that a trend. Okay, Bobby, first off, a little small Cliff Notes version of this upcoming Tuesday, potentially, and the Kurds still appear to not be on board with the budget from my last information. What do you say?
Well, I think it's going back and forth just like it has since the beginning of the year. That nobody really knows. Has the 3.8 deduction from salaries been removed? Have the martyrs been taken care of? Have the Kurds been satisfied? All indications are now is that it's ready for a vote. They've had the readings. So, with the budget, with everything that's gone back and forth and he said, she said, my feeling is, you know what, I'm not even going to worry about it until it comes up for a vote Tuesday. Like I said, all indications is that it will come up for a vote Tuesday. We won't know until Tuesday rolls around.
And that was my main point, was that it's apparently coming up for a vote Tuesday. The consensus is that minus the Kurds, everybody is on board. The coalition of forces, the National Alliance, everybody appears to have, at least from what I've seen, the only stymie is the Kurds boycotting of the budget talks. But hey, they can be involved in Iraq if they want to. And the only other thing I'll say about what I know, or what's being discussed about the budget and the 17% part is, that was done for political concessions at a certain time, and these people have gotten married to something that was never a true figure. It was done for political concessions, right? People were getting rich, and it was not a proper figure. So to be married to that, to die on the hill of that, is just ignorance. And so for the sake of unity, you're going to stand and cry in your milk over percentages that were arbitrary to begin with. It's just not logical. Skeeter, what are you saying about this?
My view on the budget is, as Bobby just pointed out, they've had 2 readings already. So obviously there's more that they agree on than more that they disagree on. So all we've seen in the news for the last couple months is they're hammering this out, they're hammering that out. I think the 17% has been squashed. I think 3.8% has been squashed. And here is the deal that everybody needs to understand. And sometimes I got to remind myself of this too. We'll see an article that comes out, and it is kumbaya. Everybody agrees they're going to sign it. Everybody's on board, and everybody's going, all right, this is great. They're going to do it. 2 hours later, an article comes out, the Kurds are going to boycott. Oh, no, they're a bunch of crooks. Guys saying that the sky is falling. I mean, literally, people need to freaking understand that this is the media, and they're going to hyper-sensationalize everything. That's just how the media goes.
Just like our media does as well.
Yeah, our media is freaking, I mean, it's garbage. I don't even follow our media. It's garbage. Anyway, so if the media finds out that 20% of a bloc doesn't agree, they're going to come out and say 80% of the bloc doesn't agree. It's just going to always be hyper-sensationalized. So between now and Tuesday, I can almost guarantee you we'll see it like a seesaw. They're going to agree, they're not. They're going to agree, they're not. There's going to be breakthroughs. There's not going to be breakthroughs. We're going to boycott. And if you know that this is going to happen before it happens, it's going to save you a lot of stress, and you can just be calm about it and know we're not going to honestly know until Tuesday gets here anyway. So you are literally working yourselves up. And again, I do it every once in a while too. I got to catch myself still after all this time. And you just, to me, at this point in the ball game, this is where common sense comes into play more than ever. You've got to just use common sense. Don't be fly-by-night, and just understand what's coming. Learn from the history of this deal and understand, it's going to be bumpy until Tuesday gets here on the budget, and we're not going to know truly what's going to happen until that time. And for me, I'm also with Bobby and Pat on this. I think that it's finally come the time that they're going to get it done. So now, could they come on Tuesday and have one more discussion and come back on a Wednesday or Thursday? Sure. But, I think they took a long enough time after Sunday. I think there's a reason why they put this session off for 9 days, and it just pisses me off when they do that, like it does everybody else. But they put it off for 9 days, and to me, that's like them having enough time to finally get enough stuff done that they can come in and they can vote on it. So you know what? Just sit back, regardless of what comes out about the budget. Just wait till Tuesday and see what happens.
Yeah, they got a lot banged out in those 9 days, because we, being that we watch it like we do, I watched, like you said, the roller coaster up, down, to where now there appears to be consensus. And even if the Kurds boycott, and the whole thing hinges on a quorum, get a quorum, and nobody cares if the Kurds showed up. You get me?
Yeah, and what Kurds are going to boycott? Is it going to be all the Kurds? Is it going to be a certain block or 2 blocks out of the Kurds? Because not everybody over there, they're not the best of friends over there. Some of them don't like the Barzani clan. Some of them don't like the Taliban.
There you go.
So there you go. Just wait till Tuesday and we'll see what happens. Easy as that.
There you go. Okay, I think their numbers were supposed to be stuck at 12.67 now, but okay. I think we've probably talked enough budget. We just wanted to tell people who were concerned, budget. It appears like Tuesday is the scheduled attempt, that's the only way I can put it, at the vote. Okay, moving on. A small, usually this kind of piece I would consider sensationalism, and the man's name literally gives me a grating feeling in the back of my head. But I'm going to talk about this Maliki file briefly. They're talking about freezing the file of the investigation. And the reason is pretty obvious to anybody who's been watching this for 5 minutes. Everything points to Maliki being the culprit in the fall of Moses. Okay, so what we have is a system whereby, I know in Britain, you can't prosecute the prime minister or a former prime minister. That has to be handled in another way, or some change of venue kind of a thing. So what's being discussed here is that although they trust the judiciary to render competent decisions, they don't trust the committee that it has to go to in Parliament, who has to officiate some of these things. And some of these people are literally scared of the environment in other words, the environment intimidates them and they won't open their mouth. That's kind of my breakdown of what they said. But, so these people won't talk. So we also have several things where it's being claimed that the file is now stuck in the military part, in military judicial system. And so it's apparently looks like that it's going to be a military tribunal if we want to see any action done to Maliki. I don't know. I cannot be certain if Parliament's system or if Iraq's parliamentary system, you can't prosecute a former prime minister, but their system was designed behind Britain's or on that model, and so I feel like that's probably written in there like that. I think that's in there. So anyway, I somebody please check back, and if you find that that's inaccurate, let me know, because I would like to set the record straight. But I think that's the hold up. Even if Parliament had the will, I don't think their system allows for it. And sure, so what we have to do now is wait on something akin to a military tribunal. Bobby, what say you?
I agree. I was just happy to see something come out about it. I've always said, there's a difference between corruption and treason, more or less, if you want to call it that, of what happened back then. Somebody's got to pay for this. I mean, we're talking over 10 to 20,000 lives lost. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy.
Bobby, he was implicated. He was implicated in working with ISIS for political gain. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, choreographed mayhem so he could remove opponents. You remember we talked about the shelling of Fallujah? I believe it was Fallujah that he shelled during the election period.
Barrel bombs.
Wow, that's a nasty bit of work, and you understand that this is going to be more than local boys got to handle this. I mean, this has to be a united consensus among nations, just like Saddam.
Yeah. Now, will that come after the elections? I don't know. I really don't. I think just the simple fact that they're talking about it kind of brings it out into the air again, kind of a thing. If it does go to a military tribunal, I'm better with that than I am a parliamentary type hearing, because Maliki had the generals in his pockets. One, we had good generals in there. Maliki came in there and removed them and put his people in. Abadi came in, removed Maliki's people, and put his people in. So I think I think if it goes to a military tribunal, I think that's good. But either way, somebody's going to pay for this, whether it be now or in the near future. So yeah.
Like you say, there were generals implicated. Maliki's whole staff was implicated. His whole, anybody who worked with the man basically was implicated. And so this is going to take more than a localized. I mean, this is a big event, and you can see why it's a sticky wicket. Go ahead.
Everybody talks about, how's this guy still around? Well, he's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of power. He still has control over some of these militias and stuff like that. I think that's why it's nice to see Abadi now talking about removing arms. If you're not part of the state, as far as the military infrastructure, you're an enemy of the state. He made this comment last year. And he was in Basra today. He mentioned it. He's mentioned it in the last week or so, that they have to start disarming these militias, these tribal clans, and everything else. There was a blow up in Basra. There was a blow up in Hawazah. They've lost lives to ISIS sleeper cells. There's been tribal clashes that have gone on lately where they've lost lives. All this all boils down to a body starting to take control. Now, how he takes control of the corrupt, well, we'll see. I've always said, you have to disarm the suckers before you go after them, and not to say that it's going to take forever to do this, because we'll get into how he's sidestepped the corruption issue later on in the call.
Gotcha. It's being claimed that he was just given bad information. His generals just didn't keep him informed, and but I have to say, and I know in our military it works this way. Ultimately, it's his responsibility. I don't care if Private Pyle didn't get you the information. Your head's going to roll if the thing goes south. You being the leader. Because if Private Pyle can't get his job done, it's up to you now to do Private Pyle's job. Right? Point is, the job's got to get done. You can't go back to, nobody told me. And in the same paragraph as, this was in cahoots with ISIS for political gain. I mean, that's what the information, the investigation, which was 8 months, by the way, came up with. And so it's a net, it's a web. We're talking, a huge collusion here.
Yeah.
Skeeter, you got any inputs on this?
I'll make this one real short. I don't waste one time thinking about Maliki. I mean, I could literally care less. As long as I've been in this deal almost, I have heard, oh, my God, Maliki's at the end of his rope. Maliki's on his last one of his 9 lives. Maliki's in a corner. Maliki's between a rock and a hard space. Maliki's got a gun pointed to his head. I mean, going back years, whenever they formed that Fabulous Five or whatever they called them, if anybody can remember way back then, Maliki was done. He was done. I mean, I have heard that literally thousands upon thousands of times. And I do want the guy to be 6 feet under for sure. But I think he has, now that the Supreme Court and the courts, got his main judges out, I don't see him having any play whatsoever in terms of what we want. So, I mean, I could literally care less if I ever heard his name again. It's just not it's just not an issue for me.
Gotcha. Kaleigh, you've been quiet during the call here. Do you have any input?
No, I agree with Skeeter. I
It's
don't
a non-issue
see Maliki as an issue at all. Yeah,
there you go.
He's done.
And I only bring it up because some people are concerned, and
lots of people are concerned.
I mean,
it gets people wound up and riled up, and they want to see him go down. I've seen people say they want him hung and all sorts of different stuff. And that's great.
I say keep him out of your mouth.
I don't disagree. I think that's great, and I want that to happen too. I just don't think it's pertinent for.
There you go. And neither do I. And I know Bobby thinks likewise. It doesn't matter. It's kind of just an update on the whole where we at thing.
And put people at ease.
Right. Well, and it's confirmation of what everybody knew. That kind of stuff. And we do know it does kind of confirm that nothing is going to get done through this Parliament. Not the current sitting government. They made that clear. So in other words, I'd never been one that said he was fixing to be cooked, because this man is Mr. Teflon at the moment, and that's how I see him. He obviously nothing sticks to him. He's still there, and he blubbers, and does his thing on a regular basis. So we're only trying to kind of alleviate people's, especially when you were told, back when you first got into this and when you were in 10th grade, that, Maliki had to go down first and all these other things that had to happen, put all that away. All we can do is watch how it goes down, because at the end of the day, how it goes down is how it went down, not what somebody said. If in fact the two don't jive, so right. you can't go back and fix, that. So anyway, that's why we try not to get too far off the page here in guessing forward. We try to extrapolate and try to we can give our best guess to the degree, but, we hope we don't have to give the disclaimer every time that you can't take it as gospel. It's our opinion, our guess. But some things are not so much opinion. That's why we try to stick with the stories and absorb them and understand them as best we can so that we're not speaking gibberish about the thing. Okay, let's see. I think that's enough of Maliki. Are y'all fed up and
yes,
discussed
please.
with that part of the call? Okay, let's move on. A body's advisor. Now we're talking about Kaleigh. Gulf countries intend to extinguish debts owed by Iraq. This was a great post brought out by Bobby the other day, and so I punched up some things in it, but I'm going to give somebody else a shot at talking about it first. Bobby, you found it, so let's start out with you.
I think this all goes along with the donor conference and what came out of the donor conference. I mean, it's hard for Iraq to take on a lot more debt without extinguishing some debts. That's the bottom line. The more you extinguish, the more you can take on, kind of a thing. It shows a good faith effort, I guess, for lack of a better term, of these countries wanting to come into Iraq, that they're trying to help them as much as they can, because they know through the IMF that it's hard for them to take on more debt that they can't account for. So you extinguish some debt. Some countries aren't extinguishing their debt. So yeah, I mean, it's all a good thing that came out of this donor conference.
Well, it's like the proverbial catch-22 situation. They need donors, or they need donors. They need loans. Certain small loans is what they point out for infrastructure purposes. They don't need great loans. We're hoping for what now winds up to be some of this forgiveness, which instead of getting a grant, if you can help pay down a debt that is a legacy debt, so much the better. You're getting the thing. You get what I'm saying? So a debt forgiveness is like a grant. Try to tell the IRS it's not. So anyway, my point is that the Skeeter, what do you got on this? I don't want to be the only guy capping here.
I agree with Bobby. I think it's just a good sign coming out of the donor conference. I think all the signs that we're seeing right now are good signs. I think the only bad sign for me, and it's not even bad, is waiting on the budget on Tuesday. The Gulf states are coming together. They see what Iraq wants to do, so they're doing what they can to help Iraq get there. And so that's a good thing. It definitely wouldn't happen before the donor conference, but it's happening after the donor conference. So all signs point to go.
Since you said it again, that reminds me that not everybody realizes, because we take it for granted, we don't see jack squat about rate of dinar in this budget. That's not even part of the picture, because some people could read in, well, the budget's important, it must have a rate in it. Why would you make that jump? I'm only trying to cut off at the pass those who would make that jump. We're not implying that, so please don't take that.
And Bobby's always said that once they change their rate, they will change that in the budget. Am I correct, Bobby?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, yeah, it would reflect in any budget, but it says that, as it were, they have two sets of books right now, one at the current rate and one at a what-if rate. Okay, they can't work off of both, so they can work with the one they've got right now. And until, they get far enough, we believe, in the private sector momentum, that's where it's going to be. It's going to take a little bit more private sector momentum and some of this investor confidence to get some of this up and off the ground. The fact that they're, I was pointing out the catch-22 situation. They want to clear up these things because, on the one hand, you can't get loans because you owe money. The people who want to loan them the money want to make deals, so they can't do it until Iraq pays back. So they're like, wow, if we want to take advantage of anything, we're just going to have to write that off. I mean, and that way we can move forward. I mean, if in fact the consensus winds up being as Kaleigh pointed out, I'm just hoping that they go that direction, because it's really the only out they've got. Am I making sense, Bobby?
Yeah.
It's their only out. It's chicken and egg. You can't have. I mean, if you want a chicken, anyway, I won't get on that. Okay. Let's see. Purpose of Kuwait conference is to obtain grants, but what they got was loans. Okay, and so grants they could have took and probably ran down the road with, but loans are subject to budgetary constraint, and that's So some people ask, why would a body not take these loans? Well, it's just not an arbitrary decision he can make. He has constraints on that transaction, and he has to stay within his legal bounds, and that's where we are on that. Am I making sense, guys?
Oh yeah.
Okay. If this doesn't happen, then everything is pretty much academic. All the efforts they've put in, you see what I'm saying? And nobody will move forward. The countries that want to do business with them can't move forward because they're still stuck in stymie land. And so to get out of stymie land, they're going to have to write off some stuff, hoping for a better return on that loss. I'm hoping that makes sense. Okay, let's see, because I think we beat that to death long enough. Let me look at time. We're doing great on time. Another one was a good report that was done recently by a group called Frost & Sullivan, and this is an assessment of the industry sector opportunities in Iraq. Bobby, again, another one that I bookmarked of yours. It's just happened to be the quick few that I could run across. Iraq emerging as top infrastructure investment hub. The country possesses one of the largest oil reserves, making it highly attractive business opportunity. You read this, Bobby. What do you think about what they're saying here? They're not blowing smoke. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the title says it all. Iraq emerging as top infrastructure investment hub. I think Kaleigh brought in one too as well, which was really good. You've got to look at Frost & Sullivan, what they do. They're a growth partnership company. They work in collaboration with other clients to leverage visionary innovation that addresses the global challenges and related growth opportunities that will make or break today's market participants. So, and I'm going to stretch this a little bit, so just bear with me here real quick, because
they're based in the United States. Sorry about that. They're based in the United States, so I think that's
exactly. Yeah, and they just an amazing organization, and they mostly deal with emerging businesses in the public sector and the investment community. So I'm going to try and tie this all in because I'd like to get to the donor conference, and that's what we're going to do here. Is that all these articles we see about Iraq being ready, whether it be from Frost & Sullivan, I think Kaleigh brought in an excellent tweet from Elizabeth Dickinson. That talked about, this is Iraq's last chance, possibly. She said that this donor conference wasn't about money at all. It was about setting Iraq up to be an investment hub. Okay, so now that we're done with the conference and we had the meeting that they said they were going to have on Monday, the 19th, with the delegates, ambassadors, and everything else to set up for what's coming up in March. So all these articles we have seen coming out of the donor conference have said Iraq is the place to be. This is, this is the best investment opportunity in the world, kind of a thing. Okay, we've read all those articles. We know that. Okay, now we're looking at March. What's going to happen in March when they get together? And I've heard the first week or two of March. Okay, so now we're going to go back to what a body in the NIC and what all these other companies or these organizations have said about Iraq, that they have made guarantees to the investors, okay? Guarantees of their money, protection, ownership of land. There's no difference between foreign and domestic or anything. Okay, we've heard all that, okay? Now it's time to tie it in together. Now, I know people see these corruption articles. I put out one this morning that Iraq is number 1, 2, or 3, whatever. They're right behind North Korea and Zimbabwe or North Korea, whatever. I don't know. But anyway, okay, so everybody gets down on corruption, okay? Then you have to look at what they did to protect the investors. If they did not put these protections in place on paper, through a handshake and everything else, then yes, we'd have a problem. I personally don't think we have a problem because they've made these guarantees administratively. They didn't have to go through, wait for Parliament to do this and do that. Parliament did enough with the investment law. A body just enhanced it, a body in the National Investment Commission. Okay, so will the investors take these guarantees and run with them? That's what we're waiting on. Myself, Pat, Kaleigh, and Skeeter can't sit here and tell you, yes, this is what's going to happen. All we can tell you is that they've set themselves up for the possibility of this happening. Okay, because the investors aren't going to come in and on this 11. This is just me. I'm not saying that this is gospel. I don't think they're going to come in on this 1184 with no outside protections through the Forex market to hedge their bets. I really don't. So all these guarantees they've made. Now we're going to have to sit back, and the days get longer. I know that. But we're going to have to sit back and see what this March meeting brings us. I've always said, you know what? I think I said it on the last call. They have to show me something between now and March 15th to keep me excited about this. And I'm not saying a rate or anything. I'm just saying show me enough forward movement as far as these investors coming in. We've seen the countries come in. That's no problem. I've seen countries come in and give buku bucks ever since I've been in this darn thing. Okay? Now we see them taking it to another step, and we just have to wait and see of how these guarantees are going to work. That's my bottom line on all this. We can pull up articles, we can pull up quotes, we can pull up everything else. The bottom line is, are these guarantees enough that the investor feels comfortable coming into Iraq, and what kind of a return will they get on their money? That's the key thing. If I'm an investor, I could give a rat's patootie about your what's going on as far as your laws or anything else. I just want to know, if I come into your country with my money, do I have an easy in, easy out? And do I have protections? That's all I want.
Yep.
That's all I want. I would suggest that everybody read. I think Kaleigh brought in another article on Frost and Sullivan that was really good.
Is Iraq the new untapped gold mine in the Middle East?
There you go. See, titles.
Yeah,
I saw that. And even the who was it? I think the U.S. ambassador spoke, or not the ambassador. Anyway, he spoke about it the other day, and he talked about these guarantees and everything, and that these are very solid guarantees. I mean, and he basically said, people are excited about this. And that's why I say, I don't want us to get bogged down in all this corruption talk. I posted the article this morning, and I said, God dang, man, this is going to ruin a lot of people's days. But then I also wanted to talk about it on the call, and that let's separate this. The corruption. Unless you march 20,000 politicians down the street in handcuffs, which ain't going to happen, then we have to go to something else. And that's the guarantees that were afforded prior to, during, and after the donor conference. I'll throw it out there to you guys. But then as we go further into this call, we'll talk about the strengthening of the dinar. But I'll throw it out to you guys, and just give me your overall. What are your expectations leading up from today to, let's call it, March 15th? What are your expectations?
Let's start with Kaleigh and see if she's got.
Gosh, I try not to have expectations because I feel like that leads to disappointment. But I'm looking forward to the budget on Tuesday, and I do want to see, the follow-up meeting in March. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen there. But I think you make a great point with the investors. They want security and knowing that they can come in easily and come out easily without losing their money or, whatever else you want to call it. But expectations, that word I think gets me, but I think we're in a great place. I think we've been in a great place, and I just continue the action, no more talk, no more bull, see what Iraq actually has.
There you go. Show your work. Skeeter, what do you...
Well, go ahead.
Kaleigh, were you through? I don't want to jump anybody yet. Hold on just a second. Kaleigh, were you through?
No, you're good. You're good. I know that everybody else is going to cover it. You're good. Go ahead, Skeeter. Thank you, Pat.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, it's hard to follow up what Bobby just said and what Kaleigh just said. They kind of put it exactly where it is and what it is. The one thing that I would like to point out is through the years we've always gotten accustomed to Iraq in their lip service. Iraq has always loved to toot their own horn and say how good they were doing and where they were. We need to keep in mind that this isn't Iraq saying these things now. This is Frost and Sullivan. This is the U.S. ambassador. This is other countries, Kuwait, and they've all got their reasons. But like people like Frost and Sullivan and Frost, they're not going to put their reputation on the line and come out with bold statements like that. It is what
That's
it is.
That's a great point, Skeeter. That's a great point.
Yeah, we know exactly where we're at. And like I told Bobby, Clay, and Pat before the call started, I said, to me, it's like Iraq is a horse in a horse race, and the donor conference was the gates. Now, the gates have been opened. Now, is it a thoroughbred race that we're watching? Is it the quarter horse race that we're watching? Is it a quarter mile? Is it 2 laps around the track? What's it going to be? Because they have come out over and over again saying we're open, or Beatty has himself saying we're open for business. Now, if it was just a Beatty saying that, you could say, well, that's just Iraqi politicians. This is for his, getting reelected, just trying to quell, whatever, attitudes there are out there. But it's not just a Beatty. It's really the world, and it's large corporations like the ones we're talking about, the ones that know what they're talking about. So if you see somebody in there going, this is just Iraq talking about themselves, well, that's anything but that's far from the truth. So it's like, how quickly is this race going to end? My expectations up to the 15th is I don't want to be here after the 15th. And I understand, Kaleigh saying that it's not good to have expectations because of shutdowns, but I'm like her. My expectations are here, and I haven't always had expectations. I just always followed it But ever since, probably 6 months before the donor conference, when we really started drilling down into the SBAs and Bobby and Pat really started outlining what was being said in those Article 4 consultations, and then we saw Iraq tackling each one of them, one by one and setting stuff up, it's really been easy to see. Has it been frustrating? This thought is nothing but frustration. It's very frustrating. And as Bobby pointed out, the days are getting longer, but it's exciting now for me because I finally see the end of the road. And I'm not going to be, I'm not going to say we're on our last chat. Well, I think we are. I don't want to be after the 50th now. We might be. Who knows? But I'm not going to be surprised if this goes another week and we're done. I'm not going to be surprised if it goes 2, 3, or another month. I don't know, but what I do know is they've got to do something. It is really time for them to either join the international community, get their private sector going, because I don't think you can do that without a rate, and I don't think you can have a rate without the private sector. I think it's all got to go together. So that's my deal. And as far as this budget, the IMF has pounded Iraq on this budget in all their last 2 Article 4 consultations. So this budget, I think it's going to get done Tuesday. I know the IMF has been all over them, and then I think that'll be just another stepping stone, and then we're how much longer after that, I don't know, but I don't think it's too long.
Pat, if I could add one more thing, something came out this morning. And, when we're talking these conferences and what's going to happen in the month of March, I think it was Kathy Keller brought in an article about another conference, a conference and exhibition being held next month, March. And it's a conference that deals with the reconstruction of Iraq and a number of projects. And the last quote of the article was that this exhibition will be dedicated to small and medium enterprises as a feeder for major industries. So if you take that and then you take what's coming out of the Kuwait donor conference, March is setting up very well. And when I say the word expectations, I kind of differ with and I'm not being disrespectful, but I differ with Kaleigh and Skeeter in that I do. Me personally, I have expectations, and I have expectations of them showing me enough to keep my interest. You see where I'm going with that? I don't have expectations that they'll pass the budget Tuesday or they will do this on a certain day, but I do have expectations that they show me a move and a drive towards everything that came prior, during, and now we're seeing after the conference. You cannot make
I totally agree with that, Bobby. No. I don't think that that's the expectations that I'm speaking about, because if they weren't doing what I think that they should be doing, then I wouldn't be here. And they are showing me, obviously, this has been incredible. I think expectations as in, the budget being passed on Tuesday, I can think all I want that that's going to happen, but Iraq does whatever Iraq's going to do. And so that necessarily is not a,
the expectations are focused, and so
right.
it's not a wild blue yonder expectation with no knowledge.
Right, exactly. Thank you. And I know that a lot of people can say that, but Iraq, they are doing amazing. It's incredible. I challenged somebody the other day that, a lot of people have been negative lately, and we have a lot of people that complain about the negativity. And I challenge yourself in asking yourself, when can you say that Iraq has done any of this stuff before? People talk about being in this for 12, 13 years. Then tell me when Iraq has done any of this stuff before. When have we ever been closer? Honestly, nobody can tell me that we've been here or done this before, or we've been this close, or that, they're getting stuff done that they should have, done years ago. We've all had hopes and stuff, but they are actually taking actions. Maybe not as much as we want, but
remember we have people who just want their opinions supported. Don't confuse them with reality. They just want you to come in and pat them on the back and tell them that, that crazy idea sounds plausible. But I can't do that and still be your friend.
Right.
So I get where you're going with that.
So, hey, guys, here's a good way for people to look at that. And I'm going to go really quick with this. I mean, in the same way for people that have been in this for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years like myself, we know now that this was not going to happen under Maliki's rule. So you can basically throw away every year that we've been watching this up until 2014. Then Abeidi comes into power. Well, when Abeidi came into power, over 60% of this country was under siege by ISIS. So it's insane to think that they were going to get their private sector up and going, join the international community, when 60% of their country was under the rule of ISIS. Well, hell, they just got to beat ISIS at the end of the year. So literally, I mean, our window really opened up in January after ISIS was gone because it wasn't going to happen until that point. Now, I didn't look at that all those years prior. It's only now looking back on it that I can say, my gosh, how we were misled.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I told a couple, until I found out what they were really all about. But, I still had my expectations. But now, looking back, I'm like, oh, man, if we could just delete every year up until this January, and now you can see exactly what they're doing, it puts a whole new meaning on we've never seen this news before. Because honestly, and nobody can argue this point, every single year when we would get in January or February, all through the year, you would always hear, oh, my gosh, the news has never been this good. Oh, my gosh, look at what they're doing. And then somebody would say something, oh, we're not even close. And then you'd have people go, are you kidding me? When have you ever seen the news like this? I mean, that
I know. I feel like one of those people.
No,
seriously, really, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proving your point here. I mean, that's probably been said literally 500,000 times if you've been a part of these groups and stuff. But now that you understand that this never had a chance of going until ISIS was gone, and now you're just not seeing lip service. You're seeing action in terms of protecting investors, companies coming in, the donor conference. It is truly a completely new ball game. So I mean, here we are.
Yep.
And it's not totally perfect because we wouldn't blow that kind of smoke up people's skirt.
No.
There's still some concern in the security aspect to investors. They want to, but remember when the military cleared ISIS, they visited areas that said they had not seen the military in 30 years. So there's that's a big country that they're still trying to get a handle on, but Abeidi is making great strides in that, trying to get the militias disarmed so that you don't have that element to concern yourself with, and again, very positive things. I never believe it when somebody says, oh, they were supposed to do this back in 2008. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Well, really, that's just an opinion, isn't it? Because nobody really knows when it's going to happen. So people could have said, "Oh, it was supposed to," and
it's convenient.
Can you honestly say that was actually a possibility back then? I mean, with everything that we know now, it really wasn't.
That was my point.
And that's fine. Yeah, it's not a big deal. But I will also say that, I realize that people have to be negative, and this is going a little off of the topic, so I apologize, you guys. But, you don't need to bring that negativity into the Facebook group. And I'm probably just going to start deleting it from now on. That's not to be rude or, I know everybody has a valid opinion. But if you're not bringing anything that's adding into the group, you're just taking away from everybody else that is positive or is actually taking the time to read the news and actually see what's going on and see that we have reason to be positive or just maybe more positive than negative. And it's starting to affect, I think, other people in the group, and that's not right to anybody. So,
okay, last thing I'm going to add here. There's a difference between being using common sense and talking about things that don't go our way. Like, if they don't come to the budget on Tuesday and they're going to come back on Thursday, yeah, that's not good news. I mean that's a negative thing that happened. But it's the negative comments that are brought out of non-common sense. I mean, if you can,
this isn't going to happen for another 20 years. I don't see it anytime soon. Those comments are the ones I'm talking about.
Well, that's expectation without wisdom.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth?
Common sense. I mean, that's all that I ask people, and I understand that common sense is the weirdest named thing because common sense is absolutely
it's not common.
It's not common at all, and I see it every stinking day. No matter how many times you hit people upside the head, common sense is something that they don't have and they never will have. So it is what it is. Okay, I'm off my horse.
Okay. Yeah, enough of that stuff. I do want to ask Pat and Bobby, or I guess Bobby's kind of answered this a little bit, but I would maybe want more. How do you guys feel about where we are, and what do you see, Pat, as maybe expectations till March 15th?
I'm kind of with the group here, and I'm not trying to just be a go-along. I mean, we have common ways that we see this, and one of them, it's important to see the budget come off because of what this particular budget means in all kinds of ways, especially with the IMF's and the World Bank's coordination of certain aspects of Iraq's economic reform. So, and I know it's kind of a long answer, but yeah, looking to see what we do here soon on the budget. I'm looking to see what the reaction with investors now, because a body has generated some real interest, in his Iraq is open for business statement. That's why you've got a discerning investor who wants to hedge his bets, and he wants certain guarantees. This is not business as usual. This is not business as we used to do it. And I hope he was ready for the change in paradigm. Because, in other words, he wasn't just having some grand opening speech. He really meant what he said. And so far from his actions, he apparently means what he says. And that's the takeaway I have. So yeah, that's kind of my focal point at the moment, watching that and to see how other things transpire, such as shoring up some of the security aspect that has given some investors concern.
Wow. Very well said. If I could add just one more thing, we can't lead this call without talking about the articles that have come out from Nasuri and other people talking about the hurrah of the dinar and marry the dinar, and they're talking about the street rate. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this, so I'm going to be the first one to throw it out there.
Go ahead.
We've seen this street rate this time last year or a little bit before. I mean, we were talking 1,300, and the ones that were getting screwed by this were the Iraqi businessmen and the Iraqi citizen. When you've got a rate of 1184 and they're selling it at the auction at 1190, and then they're selling it at the street at 1300 at that time, that's called the velocity of money. That's where people make money off of selling money. Okay, so now recently, let's don't forget about everything that's happened with the donor conference, the investors, we've all talked about that. Now let's look at the street rate. Okay, while it doesn't mean much to us as far as the 1184 rate, it does go back to the standby arrangement with the IMF, and I'm going to try and tie this in for you, and I'll do it real quick. But in the last Article 4 and the other SBAs, they talked about this exchange restriction and stuff like that. Okay, now the last one I saw was in August of last year. The Article 4 came out. Okay, so they're going off of this, and they give you this. They say. They give you a recommendation and the status. They say maintain the exchange rate peg and step up the liberalization of the foreign exchange market. The status, okay, mostly done. The authorities have removed most exchange rate restrictions subject to Article 8, Section 2, subsection A. Okay, so That was in August. Okay. Then in October, we had the Private Banking Association of Iraq, along with Rashid and Rafadain. I think they had a representative there. Anyway, they come over to the United States, and it's some sort of a welcoming ceremony, and here's who we are, and I think Citibank sponsored it, somebody like that. Anyway, so then you had a lock stand up there and say, we have removed the exchange restriction. Okay. A lot of that had to deal with a trade deal they had worked out with Jordan. Is that right, Pat? Is that what we had discussed? Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the street rate. Okay. When we talk about the street rate, we also have to go back to the SBA. Okay. I'm a big proponent of the SBA, and let me just read this real quick. When it talks about simplifying procedures to allocate foreign exchange, okay, talks about the money laundering, strengthening the money laundering law, the countering the financing of terrorism, the CFT, blah, blah, blah. Okay, at the very end of this paragraph, and it's on page 30 of the Article 4 consultation. Okay, it says right here, simplifying these procedures while properly implementing the AML CFT standards and gradually eliminating the remaining exchange restriction, go back to what I said about a lock, to move towards acceptance of the obligations under Article 8 of the IMF's Article of Agreement would help reduce the spread between the official and parallel market exchange rate. Okay? So that's what they're talking about. And in my opinion, is that parallel between the official and the street spread. That's one of them. Okay. So now we see that spread go from 1,300 to what, 1,220, 1,217. So the closer it gets to the 1184, the less profit these people are making. Now, again, if you look at the auctions used to be 30 remittance companies. Okay. Now it's down to 8 or 7. The banks used to be at 20-something. Now they're up into the 40s. So everything is shifting towards the banking sector, and they're more or less cutting these currency windows out. Okay, so now when we talk about these exchange restrictions, which a lot said that they removed, like I said, we have not seen the third review yet, because the third review is hinging on what? The budget. Okay? So when they talked about these acceptance obligations under Article 8, here's what the IMF said about it. This will also send a positive message to investors, okay? The Capital Markets Department was brought in to assist Iraq last year, I believe, or the year before. If you want to look up Capital Markets Department, look it up. Fascinating stuff. Okay, so when we talk about these exchange restrictions, we had the IMF say, that's mostly done. And then right after that, a lot came out and said, it's done. Okay? So tie everything in together and look at this shrinking of the parallel markets between the street and the official rate. And now look what's coming up with these investors. Look at what's coming up in March, and look at what they're doing to strengthening the dinar. Okay? And the way you strengthen the dinar is you come up with what? One simple rate. That's it. Mm-hmm. Not 4 or 5 rates. I mean, you've got rates in Basra, you've got rates in Erbil, you got rates in Sulaymaniyah. I mean, you've got rates everywhere. So getting this street rate closer to within the 1184, some people say it's 2%. Okay, that's fine. I don't want to see any percentage between there. I want to see them do away with it and come out with an 1184 rate, or that's the rate, and then look at going international to help the investors. Does that make sense? I mean,
sure
is there any? I mean, and I tried to put that into a 2-minute statement, and most probably didn't do it justice. But but basically with these high spread rates, you're creating profit opportunities for banks that crowd out the credit to the economy. So now where are we going in March? We're going to a market-type economy, or hoping that they go to a market-type economy. So that's why you need to get rid of these parallel rates, accept the obligations under Article 8, and I don't even know if there will be some fanfare that, hey, yeah, we've accepted Article 8, because you know what? You'll most probably be international by then. Sorry, I mean that's just it. You know, I don't wake up every morning looking for articles that that they've agreed to the obligations of Article 8. Hell, in the past, I think during some past news times with R. Cookie and Hutch and them, that they talked about that they were slapped upside the hand for violating Article 8.
Yeah.
So, in order to be slapped up against the hands of Article 8, you have to be somewhere in agreement with Article 8. That's my opinion.
Working on it. Yeah, you have to be working on it, and we've known for some time that they've been working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think we'll ever know that there will be a headline. Iraq accepts obligations under Article 8. Well, you know what? I think the first thing you'll see is, wow, look what Iraq did. They changed the value of their currency, and they've gone international with it. You know.
Yeah.
So
usually, Bobby, it's after the fact that these things. Yeah, I mean, and they don't tell everything. Every little nuance is not always expressed. Some of this is garnered from reading. That's why I talk about that section of the investment law they supposedly fixed through the special committee that sounds suspiciously like the article in the law, the investment law, that needed tweaking. Because it was antiquated for the purpose, and everything they say speaks to that. So I want to say that thing is done. So go ahead with what you were saying.
See, that's where I go. When we talk about the street rate and an exchange restriction and everything like that, we can't forget what's happened in the past. And like I say, I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, wait a minute. In the standby arrangements and the Article 4s, they talked about an exchange restriction, and I read it to you, that it's mostly done. Okay, that was in August. Like I said, then wait a minute. Well, in October, a lock said, hey, you know what? That sucker's gone. Okay, so then what else is restricting this? And then all of a sudden we see the Private Banking Association being heralded. They come back. That was in October. Okay, they've done a lot of training and everything else. Solidified the corporate governance has been taking place.
Unification.
And you know what? When we talked about, and as a matter of fact, it was Kaleigh who brought that article in from that U.S. representative over in Iraq, and he talked about the state banks choking out the private banks. He said, but what turned the table was when the state started allowing private banks or the salaries being put into the private banks. Okay, because before they weren't. They were all restricted to Rashid and Rafadang. Yeah. Okay, so then he says in that article right there, and I suggest you read it, but he talks about that, about the placing of the salaries in the private banking sector. And now, see, that's where we have to start tying all this stuff together. Because you just can't go off of one article without going, oh, wait a minute. What happened prior to this? What caused this? And where are we going with this? And then you start thinking about the donor conference and where are they going in March with this? And then on the side note, you look at, whoa, look at the street rate. Look at the auction numbers. Don't focus on 150 million, 190 million. Don't focus on that. Because that's what's needed to run the economy right now, okay? Focus on how many banks are at the auction. The higher the number, the better. And focus how many remittance companies are on there. The lower the number, the better. You see? So if that street rate starts or keeps going lower, these people aren't going to see a profit on it, because then you have to think about, what did a lot do 2 or 3 weeks ago? Letters of guarantee of $100 million. Well, You think I'm going to put that much money in there and come out with less profit than I had projected? Now, you know what? I'm fine giving you $100 million if that street rate's at $1,270 and I'm making 86 per dinar. I mean, hello, yeah, I'm making good money. But the closer you shrink that, the less these remittance companies are going to want to say, hey, you know what, this isn't really worth my time. And then it gives more money back to the banks, and it doesn't choke the economy, and the investor says, oh, how many rates you got? We got one. There you go. You know, now if I come in there, well, you know, what rate am I dealing with here? You know, kind of a thing. You know, whether you're doing, you know, there's most of it comes down to the businessman of Iraq. You know, when he pays for his imports, how does he do it? Mostly through remittance companies. You know, now the CBI and the Banking Association has, if you recall, the middle of last year offered lines of credit. Okay, and that was that was another scheme. Those were their words, not mine, to get people into the banking sector. So anyway, I'm going to get off of my high horse on this one because I really wanted to talk about the street rate, but don't just focus on the street rate. Look at everything else that's taking place and coming up and throw that in there. But remember, everything that's happening was put in place prior to it happening. You just have to recall all that taking place, whether it be the Private Banking Association, whether it be the SBA saying you remove this restriction, or a lot came out and saying, hey, you know what, we've removed the restriction.
Yeah.
Boom. Everything's setting up for March. And those are my expectations. Thank you.
Very coherently expressed, by the way.
So anyway, I'm off my high horse. I just thought with all the news coming out about the strengthening of the dinar, we've got to separate that it has to be strengthened internally before it goes external.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
Well, okay. That's our last topic for tonight. So what I want to do is go around the table in bowing our way out the door and ask, do we have any last inputs? And then we'll start with Kaleigh first.
No, that was great. Thank you guys all for an amazing call, and thanks for everybody who will be listening. And y'all are fantastic. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Skeeter, do you have anything to add?
Got nothing. Everything that needs to be said was said.
Thank you, sir, for being here with us tonight.
Yeah.
Bobby?
You most probably shouldn't have came to me again because you know me. Let's keep this thing going.
Make sure you.
You know what? I'll you know what? Just to all our members, if you've got a concern, don't be scared to type it out. I mean, seriously, don't be scared because you know what? We've had some great threads go on where it centered on or started off at just one simple question. And don't be scared to type your question, wonder, I hope they don't laugh at me. Nobody's going to laugh at you. If somebody does, I will boot their butt personally. Because you know what? As a group, we're here to answer our concerns, whether I have a concern or whether anybody has a concern. That's what we're here for. Bring it up. Let's talk about it. Because if I see a question and I know the answer, I'll jump in. I'll try and jump in. If everybody's straying, we'll try and come up with a consensus with facts. Because I love researching. I really do. And we'll come up with what's happened in the past to what's happening or what happened in the past that affected what's happening now. Because you cannot forget the past and understand the future.
There you go.
So don't be scared to ask your questions. You could even side message myself, Kaleigh, Pat, Skeeter, anybody. Mm-hmm. Side message them, and, we'll talk about it. We'll try and help you out as much as we can. If I don't know the answer, I'll go find you an answer somewhere. a solid answer. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like that. And I would say that challenging is different than being rude. Sometimes somebody will ask you a question and they just want to see where your thinking is, and so that may come across as being rude, but usually it's just somebody trying to figure out why you think that, how you got to that question or that answer or whatever. So please don't be offended by that, and know that we're all here together. We're all learning together. We're all growing together. So, sorry.
Right. Many miscommunications have been started from people not being able to garner the proper inflection from statements made. I've probably been guilty of it myself, and so, just remember that don't assume on the front side somebody's just being a smart aleck. They may just be causing you to do some logical math. And that's really what it's about. So, without much more dragging feet here, we're going to tell everybody have a good night. We hope to do this again soon and catch us next time around. Good night, everybody.